Welcome back to She Rises Daily, Emerging You in 10. I'm your host, Doc Shelley, here to bring you your daily dose of inspiration, empowerment, and growth. Have you ever watched a newborn deer take its first steps? Its legs wobble, it stumbles around, it looks really unsure of itself. You don't watch that little deer and think, "Oh, little buddy, I guess walking just isn't for you." Of course you don't think that. You understand that wobbling is part of learning. And yet, when it comes to our own growth, we expect something completely different. We expect confidence, we expect clarity, we expect to feel like we know what we're doing. And then the moment we feel awkward, we wonder if we've made a mistake. Today, I want to offer you a different perspective. Maybe awkward isn't evidence that you're failing. Perhaps it's evidence that you are growing. Growth feels different than mastery. Most of the things you're good at today don't feel awkward anymore. Driving, typing, having conversations, your morning routine. They don't feel awkward because they were always easy. They don't feel awkward anymore because you've practiced them enough that they have become familiar. Growth feels awkward because you're asking your brain, and often your heart, to do something it hasn't fully learned yet. You're building new neural pathways, you're trying new behaviors, perhaps you're testing out some new beliefs, so of course all of that feels unfamiliar. That is what learning feels like. We often mistake discomfort for wrongness. One of the biggest traps we fall into is assuming that discomfort means we are on the wrong path. When you think about learning anything new, that first time you played an instrument, the first time you drove a car, the first presentation you gave, the first difficult conversation you had to have, you probably weren't graceful. You probably weren't super confident. Awkwardness wasn't a sign to stop. It was part of the process. Sometimes we quit too soon because we mistake the discomfort of growth for evidence that we don't belong there. Years ago, I worked with a leader who had recently been promoted. As an individual contributor, he was exceptional. People came to him for answers because he was the expert. Leadership, however, asked something entirely different of him. Instead of being the problem solver, he had to learn to ask better questions. Instead of always being the hero, the one who could save the day, he had to learn how to build other heroes. And at first, he was really uncomfortable. I would go so far as to say he was even inefficient at it. And he told me many times, "I feel like I'm not very good at this, Shelley." And I would always smile and ask, compared to what? Compared to someone who's been an expert for years? Or compared to someone who's been leading people for a decade? He wasn't failing at leadership. He was just simply new at it, and he had a lot to learn. And new almost always feels awkward. One of the hardest places to be is that between version of yourself. It's that space between who you were and who you are becoming. Those old habits don't quite fit anymore, and the new ones, they don't feel natural yet. It's kind of like trying on a new pair of hiking boots. At first, they feel really stiff, and you notice every step. Eventually, you break them in, and they become part of you. Growth and learning often feel the same way. You're not lost, you're adjusting. Don't judge the middle by the beginning. Imagine quitting after your second piano lesson because you weren't ready for a concert, or giving up on pickleball after your very first game because your third shot drops kept finding the net. We would never expect mastery that quickly. Yet somehow, we expect it from ourselves in our careers, in our relationships, in our leadership, and in our personal growth. Give yourself permission to be a beginner again, not because you're incapable, because every version of you that you have admired began exactly where you are now, awkward, uncertain, and learning. Here's your reflection question. Where in your life have you been interpreting awkwardness as failure when it might actually be evidence that you are growing? And your power thought, awkwardness is often the bridge between who I am and who I am becoming. Growth rarely announces itself with confidence. More often, it arrives wearing the mask of uncertainty. It asks you to take one more step before you feel ready, to keep practicing before you feel capable, to stay committed before you see the results. That's not a flaw in the process. It is the process. So, if life feels a little awkward right now, don't be too quick to judge it. You just might be standing in the middle of becoming someone you've never been before. This week, notice one place where you feel awkward, uncertain, or like you're still figuring it out. Instead of asking, why am I so bad at this? Try asking, what if this is exactly what growth is supposed to feel like? You may find that a little self-compassion gives you the courage to keep going. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of She Rises Daily, Emerging You in 10. If today's episode encouraged you, please share it with someone who's in the middle of learning something new. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is the reminder that being a beginner isn't something to be embarrassed about, it's something to be honored. Until next time, remember, every expert was once awkward, every confident person was once uncertain, and every meaningful transformation begins with a few unsteady steps.